Alrighty, well there we go. Well, Andrew, thank you again so much, dude, for taking the time to do this. I'm glad we were able to finally make it happen. And you're somebody. It was fun doing the homework on this one. And like I said, it's not really homework because I love doing this, but you're somebody who's got a diverse background, and it's always cool to like put on for somebody from the same neck of the woods, dude. So thanks so much for joining me, man.
Dude, thanks for having me on, Mike.
You're welcome. Well, in my research. Um, I know that at least I'm pretty certain from what I remember, and I do have my scratch notes here, but I try to be a pro and not look at them too much.
Sure.
But you like a lot of people, right? Like church choir was kind of like sort of the entry, but it was cool because on a previous podcast you had shouted out Sanctus Real as like an early kind of influence and like dude
Yeah,
that
yeah.
it took me back because like I remember being a kid in the 90s and I remember that name. I never really totally ventured into Christian music at that level, but I remember Sanctus Real like having an audience like way beyond Toledo and that was like one of those bands where it's like yes, they're from Toledo. So
Yeah.
anyway, so is that sort of one of the early kind of musical influences was like church, Sanctus Real, sort of the Christian, the church background.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sanctus Real also had another rung or another point of contact with me, not just from being from Toledo, but they went to my high school or they went to my school and they would actually come and they would like play for us on certain occasions. So it definitely made it feel special when we heard like, oh, they were going and touring around the country, but then they would like stop off at their alma mater. Um, but as far as like other musical influences outside of the stuff that we'd be listening to in the car on CD on repeat, which would often be like a lot of the, like gospel. They had their it's like secular music had Now, and gospel music had Wow. Um, and so Wow was like a compilation of what all the, top Christian artists were at the time. But when we weren't listening to that stuff, um, my dad was really into like a lot of jazz fusion type stuff. And so he would, put on like George Benson in the house and he had some old like vinyl in the basement and my mom had like her vinyl collection too and she was more on the kind of pop side of things. Or I shouldn't necessarily say just pop, but like, popular music. She had a lot of Beatles records and some like a Pointer Sisters single. And um, so it was like fun going to the basement and like seeing what kind of music we had and, either putting vinyl on or, trying to go through the multi-disc CD changer to see what all was in there.
And you said for you personally, Tom Petty's like a big musical influence too, right? Or I had heard that, and
Yes.
that's one we share as well. Like "Free Fallin'" is one of my favorite songs ever because that album, I believe, is Full Moon Fever. I think it
Yep.
came out like '89, and it
Yep.
kind of tracked as I got older because I was born in '88, and I remember being a little dude like in the early '90s, and my dad playing a lot of that. He would play Eric Clapton, Bad Love. I remember being one of the songs. I think that was on his Journeyman album. So it was funny. It took me like decades to realize, like, oh yeah, like when my dad was my age, those were the records that were coming out in like the late '80s. But yeah, to this day, when I heard that you loved Free Fallin' too, and I can't remember if it was it the next record was like The Great Wide Open and uh uh
Yeah, yeah, because that was the one that I just remember the music video with Johnny Depp doing that for yeah, Into the Great Wide Open. Um and then I think I can't remember whether Wildflowers is after that when he finally did like his next solo one because I think Into the Great Wide Open was a proper Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers album. But
so Tom Petty's one of those ones that you love. Like, is that one that you still have in the rotation to this day?
yeah, I think that the albums of his that I go back to the most, I really like Damn the Torpedoes and Wildflowers. Those are two that I go to a lot. Back in 2017, I got to see him perform live. There was a music festival out in Southern California that doesn't exist anymore, but it's called Arroyo Seco Weekend. And for 2 consecutive years, they had incredible bills. I saw Dawes, and I saw Alabama Shakes on the stage before I saw Tom Petty play. So it was a really, really good day. And leading up to it, I just decided to do like a full deep dive of just like went through and listened to every single album of his. And the movie soundtrack he did for, oh, I'm trying to remember the name of it. Oh man, I'm trying to remember what year that was. This is the part where I need like Wikipedia or I need my phone on hand. But anyway, um, yeah, it was just like really, really fun. And, finding all the, you know, I wouldn't even call them B-sides. It's kind of like more the hidden gems that never got the radio play on, 94.5 back in our hometown. So,
He's the one. Is that the one you're thinking of?
yeah, she's the one. Yep.
In 96. I did a quick Goog.
Same.
Um, yeah, shout out to Tom Petty, man. The other song, same thing, dude. Like it's like one of those things where it's like the immediacy of being in the moment and you can't recall. Somebody could ask you like, what's 2 plus 2? And you'd be like, 18. Um, no, but I was thinking of it too when you were talking about Into the Great Wide Open, and I was like, what's the other one off that record? And I'm like, it's one of my favorite riffs ever, but from him, Learning to Fly too. I love like the intro of that song. You could just like play that on a loop and the beginning of Free Fallin'.
Hmm.
I think it might have been Corey Taylor from Slipknot and Stone Sour who said, yeah, like he and maybe I'm misquoting, so I hope none of the fellow metalheads come after me, but he was like, a song is like good when when you just you want to rewind it like the first 15-30 seconds. And I think that's like I think it was him who said that, but I think that's very true. But yeah, anyway, yeah, that's one of those songs too. But that's sick. You got to see him live, man, and Alabama Shakes like all on the same day. That's pretty sick.
Yeah, it was really cool. And actually, you mentioning Corey Taylor, one of my other good experiences I had when I lived in Los Angeles is Knotfest and Ozfest shared like a weekend. It was like you know uh, Ozzy Osbourne's like final performance with Black Sabbath, but like it was the end of their tour, and he's still performing with them afterward for special occasions. I didn't make it to the Ozfest side, but I have a friend who's from Iowa and is a huge Slipknot fan, and so I took him to a Guns N' Roses show, and then I went with him and his buddy to go see Slipknot, and that was insane. But it was such a fun day, like getting to see all these like more hardcore and metal bands that I had never really checked out before. But I kind of did the same thing, like what I did with the Tom Petty. Like I kind of just went through all the records and found, these artists that were just is just fun to be bathed in heavy metal for a little bit.
Those are usually the waters that I swim in a lot, but kind of like you, like I had different music in the house, so like metal, I say it all the time, but I love him. He's my brother Brandon, and my oldest brother. I have two older brothers, and so he was the one that really, I w kind of got me into the heavier direction. Was really heavy into. He was like in like 96. He would have been. I'm gonna do math in my head real quick. Probably like I think he was like 14 when I was like 8. So like that was like right at the beginning of new metal. So like he loved Korn. He loved Metallica. And then he also loved like the 90s grunge stuff. The closest my dad and mom got to that, like my dad had the Alice in Chains Unplugged album, one of the greatest records ever, greatest unplugged album ever, in my opinion, my humble opinion. No disrespect to any other ones. And my mom loves Pearl Jam and Eddie Vedder, so that was like the closest they got. But yeah, it was funny. She came down for a visit. Shout out, mom, and a couple of years ago, and I had like a '90s mix on. We were taking a road trip to one of the parks that has a waterfall. And that's one of the cool things about being down here in the Nashville area. Like if you love nature, like you can get 30 minutes outside the city and it's beautiful nature if you want to get out of the hustle and bustle. And we went to one that was about an hour and a half from where I live. And it was a 90s mix. So I'm like, oh, this will be all right for mom. But like these algorithms tailor it to like your taste. So like I think Slipknot Sick might have come on, and like I looked over at her and I was like, yep, it's about to go down right now. Um and it was probably like right after, I don't know, like the Cranberries or something. But yeah, they're on my bucket list to see live. But I'm happy. That's pretty awesome. You got to experience both of those. And that's one thing I wanted to ask you, man, is so for people who aren't aware, um you got into music when you were like when you were younger with choir, Toledo Christian, right? Is that where you went to school?
Yep.
Shout out Toledo Christian.
Hmm.
And then when you were in college, you were doing like broadcasting, like doing like sports broadcasting stuff. Was it Kent State? Is that where you went?
Kent
Fellow
State, fellow Mac, just
fellow
like you.
Mac?
Yep.
Yeah, man. And so then your sister was in LA. Was
Hmm.
it for like doing fashion, like
Yeah. Yeah.
in that realm? And so you went out to LA, and so I think this is cool, and we can nerd out about this a little bit because and this is one of the things I wanted to ask you if you relate to this, but just like being from Toledo, being from like a blue collar Midwest city, at least the way that I felt. I can't speak for anybody else. And we have a great, for people who aren't aware, we do have like a great local arts
Hmm.
scene, Toledo, a great local music scene. I was privileged to be able to cover it for a few years with Toledo Free Press. But like at the same time, like in my periphery, I didn't know a lot of people who were like, outside of the Northwest Ohio area who were trying to go to like LA or New York. And there have been numerous people in film and entertainment who have done it, but it seemed like really it seemed pretty far away. It didn't seem impossible, but it just seemed kind of far away. So that was one of the things I wanted to ask you, especially having like a sister, being in fashion out there too. Like, was it something that didn't seem as far away for you guys, or it was just one of those things like, hey, I'm gonna take the chance. This is what I want to do. I'm gonna, because I always admired when people would go for that creative route, like in that way, like if they were gonna go to LA for film or they're gonna go to New York, because I don't know. I guess it just, like I said, we have a great local arts and music scene in Northwest Ohio, but I didn't know a lot of people who had really like gone to either the West Coast or the East Coast to explore it. So I always think that it's cool. And I was just curious about your journey with that.
Yeah, I think it goes a lot to I'm really fortunate, shout out to my mom and to my late father, but they were really encouraging for us to kind of test our boundaries. Doesn't necessarily mean that they always felt comfortable that we were going out and traveling far, but like back in high school, these were supervised trips, but I got to go on some really cool backpacking trips over spring breaks toward the end of my high school years, and that really kind of got my gears going of like I need to go somewhere else. Like I can't just stay here. Like I need to do some cool things. I didn't know what that meant at the time. Into the Wild. Speaking of Eddie Vedder, love of Eddie Vedder. That was a huge album for me. The Into the Wild soundtrack, my senior year of high school, and kind of put the fire under me to like go somewhere. I didn't know where, and my sister, yeah, she worked at a couple different fashion retailers and boutiques in Toledo, and studied at Bowling Green. And while she was there, she was really into Rachel Zoe at the time. She had I can't remember the Zoe Project, or I can't remember the name of the show that she had, but she was like, I want to try out styling, and so she went to some like internship fair that Bowling Green was having, and there was a representative from one of the fashion lines that she knew of, and they were all kind of like more advertising stuff on more like HR or like kind of like C-suite, or I don't know what that business world kind of thing. And she's like, well, do you have anything for like styling? And the person there was like, well, let me get back to you on that. So as soon as she heard back from them that like they were considering like having her for that opportunity, my dad started plugging away, looking at like, okay, what are we gonna do for, what can you do for, apartments out there? Is there, someone else from BG that's gonna be out there at the same time? Like, could you get a roommate? How are you gonna have a rental car? You're under, I can't remember the age you have to be to rent a car, but you're under 23 or whatever, 24. So my dad just like he loved to he was like a logistics guy. I mean, even by trade. He worked in customer relations with a bunch of different people to get people that were working in the warehouse industry to get them what they needed. So and I could talk about that in a different context, but um, yeah. So my sister got to go out there for an internship, and that same summer that she was out in Los Angeles, I had lined up a gig at my school newspaper, the Daily Kent Stater, to be an entertainment and features reporter. And a buddy of mine by the name of Nathan Edwards, I'll give a shout out to him. He used to be a newscaster um, down in, well, he's been in a couple different cities, but he's in Dayton now, and recently switched over to PR. Um, you know how that circle works. You work in the news, and then some things start to change in your station culture, and then you go to work for a different company. But yeah, so he had gotten a press pass to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction because it was being held in Cleveland that year. It had been a while since they had done it there, and he got to do like red carpet interviews with all these incredible musicians that were going in that year. I think, yeah, it would have been for spring of 2009. And so I was like, I want to do something cool like that. And I had always loved Comic Con. I was always following all the Comic Con, um, you know, movie updates and photos and videos, anything that was coming out of there online. I was soaking it up. So I was like, you know, I'm gonna try and get a press pass for Comic Con. So I like mocked up like my business card and sent in like all my things I needed to get credentialed, and I got it. And then speaking of people to kind of look up to from Toledo, people that were kind of already doing the East or West Coast thing, a family friend uh, was also a former Falcon, former Bowling Green State alum. And one of his buddies had moved out to LA years ago to do acting and was working for Fandango.com doing their like press junkets. And his name's Trey Alexander. Shout out to Trey. But I got connected with Trey, and since I had the press pass, he was just like, just hang with me and my producer. So I started following him around at the red carpet junkets. I was not on the press list for that. I was not like I had no contact for these people, but I had the badge. So I started snapping pics and on the red carpet of all the big movies of that were coming out in 2009, and they didn't actually have a photographer with them. So then they were like, "Hey, can we, use your photos in exchange? We'll give you credit in the gallery." And I was like, "Absolutely." So that kind of kicked off like it was really that. I mean, summer of 2009 between Sarah being in LA and then me going down to San Diego. It just kind of all snowballed from there. And I still going back to what you were saying about Toledo Free Press and like your own experience, like working in like sports broadcasting, sports news stuff. That's kind of where my head was at when I was at school because we had a really good program at Kent where pretty much well, not any football game, but pretty much any basketball game that wasn't being picked up by ESPNU or Sports Time Ohio or trying to remember what the other like regional cable sports things were. We were broadcasting it locally, same thing like BCSN or local cable sports. So yeah, I mean, there was a period of time where I was like, I could almost go more toward like I would love to work for like NFL Films. Actually, there was a year that my dad and I drove out to New Jersey because I got selected for an interview for like an internship at NFL Films. Didn't work out, but it was really cool like to just do that. And again, like about supportive parents, like my dad driving me. Well, he didn't just drive me. He like drove to Kent first, so that's 2 hours, and then he drove the additional. I guess it would have been like 6 or 7 hours to get from Kent State out, through Philadelphia and into New Jersey. So yeah, just really grateful to have that support behind me the whole time.
Hell yeah, man. Shout out to Pops and shout out to Mom too, man. That's how this got linked up. Our moms met and we're talking and yeah, it's great when you have like a supportive inner circle, because again, it just sometimes, entertainment, music, it can seem it can seem far away. But then when you see people doing it and you know people who are in entertainment, whether it's in front of the camera or behind the camera or writing, like it's cool, man, and it lets you know like, oh yeah, like this is not something that seems like otherworldly. This isn't just like, something that's really far away. I can have, some access to this and try to go for it. And I think that's cool about kind of the era that we're in now, where it's like, you know, sometimes things can be a little overwhelming with social media, but at the same time, it can connect you with people that, 30 years ago would have been a lot harder to reach. It can put you onto some music that, same thing. You might have had to know somebody who was like really tapped into like the underground or whatever, or go to the record store and the record store owner or the people who work there, like, what do you listen to? You know what I mean? And those experiences are still awesome. Shout out to all the people that still getting the vinyl, man, because I love that artwork. But yeah,
Hmm.
I'm glad that to hear that you had it, that you guys had the support, you and your sister in the household to do it. Um, and then you got to be part of one of the coolest series and popular series, not just in horror, but just in general of like the last like 15, 20 years with American Horror Story. What was that journey like? Because did you worked your way up from like, was it production assistant and then you became part of the writing team for the show? Like that's sick, man. Like and that show, for people who aren't maybe aware, like each season was like a different for lack of a better word, like theme, so within the horror genre, but each season, like wasn't Lady Gaga, I think, was like the hotel
Hmm.
season, but anyway, man, yeah, so that's really dope, and I think people would be curious to kind of hear about that too, because again, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are writing or love film, love TV, and they're probably like, how do I do that? And you were somebody that did that. So I'm curious that if you want to go through that journey too, because I thought that was really cool, man.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, when you're also talking about like things being of a time, like about the way social media is now, I feel very much that the experience that I had was of a time. Um, and again, really fortunate, really, really lucky, timing of things. Um, but I'll before I get into the state of things now, I will go into why things were the golden age back then. Yeah, so fresh out of college, uh, my sister had already made the move permanently, or you know, she had moved all her things, and she was well, other than the stuff that we kept at home at mom and dad's basement. But she flew out to Los Angeles, moved there, and had been there for at least a year before I moved out. And my sister had made friends with a group of people, including this really cool guy by the name of Christian, and he had an apartment out on the west side in Playa del Rey. So I was kind of living in this little surf house, basically, like for the first few months and first year that I was in LA. But I kind of got out there and um, was just kind of applying for different jobs and fortunately, Fandango opened up. There was a intern position with their content team, so I got to do a little bit of reporting while I was there. They flew me up to San Francisco to do a junket for Finding Nemo's 3D re-release. So I got to interview different team members from that. I know you would appreciate that, considering all the interviews you've done between the podcast and all the stuff you did for Free Press and other press purposes. But um, after a few months of doing that, my sister, who again, uh, I'm indebted to her. She was working for a stylist at the time who happened to be a friend of one of the producers on the show, on actually several of the shows that Ryan Murphy did, and I had helped out briefly on two occasions with there was a shoot that she was doing, and I was just kind of just like in the trailer, the costume trailer, kind of like helping her keep things organized. And then there was another time where her boss at the time needed some help, like putting up some bookshelves in the house, and I he offered to pay me, and I was like, no, no, it's all good. Like, I'm sure there'll be, some opportunity in the future where if there's somebody, could introduce me to or whatever, I would prefer that. He's like, okay. So my sister was basically just like, hey, you should, introduce Andrew to Dante. And so just so happened that that summer, um, they were looking for somebody to be a production office assistant, which was basically at the time someone who's going to be kind of going between all the different shows and also like kind of running errands for the top executive producers that were there in the office that was known as the loft at the time. Um, and I got an interview, and I did, I had a leg up because of you know my my boss's friend. So and so yeah, so thank you, Sarah. Thank you, my older sister. Um, and yeah, from there it was kind of working a few years, running around, getting getting food, getting coffee, all the stuff that you see in shows about like the life of a Hollywood assistant, kind of that kind of stuff. Um, and then I got an opportunity to move specifically just working on American Horror Story as a writer's PA, which meant I was getting specifically coffee and food for the writers, not all of these other people. So, but along the way, so many cool, you know, I got to work at the Paramount lot, which is just I I'm going to jump into the future now. The state of things right now where each all these studios are just like absorbing each other, and inevitably this real estate and these buildings and this history is going to be lost to time, and it's sad. I know that it's a part of business and it happens, but I think particularly with the rich history of film, that it's a darn shame that more people are not going to be able to have the same experience I had of, you know yeah, you're just getting in. It's your first opportunity, and you try and make the best of it. A lot of these opportunities are going away, and I was again right around the time that I got in. There was the big battle of all these people that were starting up their streaming programs, and it was like how many shows or how many movies can we make so that way we don't have to license uh, movies and TV shows from other companies, and that bubble has now burst. And so yeah, so I was really fortunate, and um, yeah, I mean, after being writer's PA for a few years, I got bumped up to script coordinator, which was more of a kind of like an editorial kind of position, making sure that people's grammar matched because different people would do different things. Some people would double space after periods. Some people would, uh, you know, spell things incorrectly all the time. Other people, so it's just a lot of continuity, and then coordinating with different department heads anytime something changed. If for whatever reason it was like, okay, we're dropping this location, um, and so we have to issue revisions so that now that we're not shooting at this cafe, since we're going to be shooting in a hotel room instead, we need to have X, Y, and Z change in the script. And so yeah, I was kind of the liaison on that, and some opportunities I actually got to write stuff for the show. Very very small things. Actually, one of the first uh, song placements I ever had in a show. The song never appeared on air, but I got to write lyrics for um, one of the characters on American Horror Story during the hotel season, because they needed to for a montage that they were shooting. They needed them to be playing piano, and they wanted them to actually be singing something. So I got to write that song, but I don't even know if that shot even ended up in the final. It's been so long since I've seen the show, but at least it got filmed on set, and I remember the day that it happened, and I was like, this is pretty cool.
That's sick, man. Yeah. Is there any moments like during this process where like you're kind of pinching yourself, or are you just you have so much going on and there's so much to do, and you're a piece to this big puzzle of all these moving parts of the show where you don't even have time to even like be like, oh my God, like, this is so cool. Just like I'm a kid from the Midwest, Northwest Ohio, and now I'm in LA and I'm I'm on American Horror Story. There's Lady Gaga over there. Like I like, like or is it just one of those things where it's like you just have to be so focused and so on because there's so much that you need to get done that you don't even really have time until it's over to really kind of reflect on and go, oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
I fortunately there was enough time, and even though there were some intense moments as far as like, okay, I got to get the work done. I have to go do this. I have to do that. I have to stay up a little late. I have to give up a weekend. Um, I felt like I was fortunately I was pretty present during those times. One of the most amazing moments, and it ties into music. Um, Stevie Nicks was a part of the seasons, both American Horror Story seasons that involve witches. She was like brought in as like, oh yeah, it turns out Stevie Nicks is a witch. But she came back for Apocalypse back in 2019, and there was because of her scheduling, she could only shoot like on a Saturday, and I had access to set, so I got to walk in. I didn't see her full like private performance that she did for the cast, but just to be there, like 10 feet away from Stevie Nicks, just doing um, landslide, for a private audience. It was pretty amazing.
To be like front row for like one of the coolest songs ever. Yeah, that is wild. That is wild, man. Well, I'm glad that again that you guys had like the support in the home because what I've realized as I've gotten older, man, and it's hard sometimes with anxiety, to not, like chase the rumination rabbit hole or like the negative feelings to kind of learn like, this too shall pass and like, you know, try to look at your thoughts as passing clouds. We are not our thoughts, all these things. And so it's been like a lifelong thing, but so much I think, man, is like belief, not only belief in yourself, but like when you're primary caregivers, and I'm sorry about the loss of your father, genuinely, man. But when your primary characters like believe in you, that's such like a huge thing, and then to have other people in your periphery, like I really do think that there's something to, I don't know. I think there's some things that are beyond a lot of things that are beyond like human understanding, but I think like you see people who are doing things and whether it's entertainment or I guess just maybe outside of like let's just say like the norm. I hate that word normal, you know but like outside of like the 9 to 5 and stuff, and it's like, well, if there's somebody's doing it, that means it's possible.
Hmm.
But when you have people like when you have that unconditional love and those people in your world who help you believe in that, like I think that that's like so huge, so kudos, man, to having that support system and to having the belief in yourself and to have those experiences like in college and leading up to that, man, like that's really cool. And speaking of the music piece of it, and thanks again so much, Andrew. I really appreciate the time, dude. We could probably talk for 4 hours, but I'm not going to keep you
Yeah.
that long.
All right.
Um, but I gotta give you a shout out too, to your music, for people who aren't aware. So your EP, Undertow, Paulsen-Shepler, came out in 2022. And then we're gonna jump timelines a little bit again. We're gonna kind of like Tarantino this, where we're gonna like jump around a little bit. Um, but um, but I really dug it, man. The songs that I really liked. I mean, the title track is dope, but I also really liked the lake. That was like a cool, like that was like a noticeable break in that EP. I felt like it
Right,
was like a
right, yeah.
cinematic part where I was like, this could be like in a movie. This could be like a montage of a movie. It was very like powerful and cinematic. And then I really liked East River Bend too, man.
Thank
That one gave me a lot of like positive mental health vibes. Like it's almost like somebody who's like, hey man, like almost like that feeling of like this too shall pass.
you.
So anyway, I know we're jumping around a little bit from American Horror Story into the music, but since you brought up like the music moment in the show, and you had the, in the early in the conversation we were talking about your start with that with like choir and the music you had in the household, but talk to me and the people about Paulsen-Shepler, man, because I really dug that EP. I think people who are into like folk and Americana and stuff, they'll really dig that.
Yeah. So, well, to talk very briefly, because you actually made a very strong connection with maybe you intended it or not, but East River Bend with the This Too Shall Pass. Um, I got really excited and kind of sharing these stories of being in LA. And the thing is, this all ended in pretty much in 2020. I was no longer a part of the American Horror Story writing team world. That kind of went away. I was fortunate to work for another TV show that kind of shot me in the direction of the East Coast, but I kind of had a little bit of an identity crisis because it was like, well, I had this incredible run where I was able to work on these shows and meet these incredible people and have these fun memories, but I was like, what's going to happen next? Um, so to kind of give a little background on what even sent me to record any of these songs or come up with these songs, um, back in I guess it was September of 2020. Um, I had a good friend of mine. Him and his wife were going to be moving out to Florida, and they needed a co-pilot because she was I think 7 or 8 months pregnant at that point, and was not feeling up to doing the drive. And they also had three cats. So it was decided that uh, my friend, she would take a flight with some other friends of ours, and I was going to do the road trip with my buddy. So we did this several days trip across the country down to Florida, and just like I if anybody has the opportunity to take the time to help their friend go, like move across the country, do it. Um, there are times where it's tough, obviously. It's like hard to pull, 10-hour, 12-hour days of driving, but you just see so much of the country and it's so cool. And there really is something to like um just having I don't know, like getting off at a gas station with a friend. It's and finding fun little games along the way. We did this game where we would pick like a keyword and then just like punch it into uh, Spotify to see whether there was a song that had that title or a lyric or whatever, and we would just like play that, and it was a really fun game. But anyway, got out to Florida, unloaded the truck and everything. And then I had my car that we were towing behind the moving van the whole entire time. So I split off and started my own little journey to get up to Ohio. And the whole plan was I was working remotely for this TV show that was going to be on Netflix. And we had already submitted all our scripts to the network. And we were basically just waiting to hear back on, like, okay, what are the next steps? What do you want to change? Are we good to write the final two episodes? Because we had pretty much everything else written. So uh, I was across the country. I was in Florida. Things still seemed like, okay, we've got this show. I'm working remote and I had a little bit of time. So I visited Orlando, and my friend Ben Shepler and his wife, Mackenzie, lived there. And Ben is an incredible composer and musician. He can like back when we were in high school, he started like building out his own basement at home with just like any instrument he could find. He had like a church organ that somebody was getting rid of and put into the basement, and he started recording albums himself and was even running sound for a lot of shows in Toledo for a time before he moved down to Florida. But he had just finished making his home studio in Orlando, and uh, I I don't even know whether I'd even been talking to him about anything music related, but he was like, "Hey, while you're here, um, we should like record something for fun, like you, me, and Mackenzie." So I was like, "I'm down for that." Because the other thing too, the other side of this is that Mackenzie is an actress, and she's acted at Disney World and worked in a number of short films and a web series. And but at the time, she was just kind of getting started in like, I want to I want to make some sort of short film that I'm like the lead in. And I was like, okay, well, I can write it for you. So we kind of had this idea. It's like, okay, at some point we're going to work on a short film together. But while I'm here, like, let's make a song. So I had a ukulele with me at the time, and I went off, kind of wrote some lyrics, came up with a little tune, and that's what became Undertow. And yeah, it was just like fun to kind of put together. It's a very, beachy song at the beginning. It's, very aquatic. I was inspired going back to Tom Petty. I love his song "It'll All Work Out." It has kind of like this uh Irish, Irish kind of vibe to it. I don't know. Do you remember that tune?
I'm trying to think what I'm trying to think of what album that's off of. I gotta look it up now. It'll
Yeah.
all work.
Um, Phoebe Bridgers ended up covering it, but anyway, it was a song that was kind of inspired by that kind of vibe, or like Billy Joel has his song "Down Easter Alexa," which is about a fishing ship. But yeah, I'm not sure that I'm necessarily making this into an interesting story, but we started recording from that, and in 2021. Oh yeah, so here's the fun part. So I came across the country not only to help my friend move, but it was with the understanding that the show that I was working on was going to be filming in New Jersey or New York come later in 2020 or very early 2021. Well, I got across the country. I was making my way up to Ohio to spend the holidays there. And that's when I found out that the show was canceled. There was a change of guard with the executives. And so I was out of a job, but I still had an apartment that was available to me through a friend of a friend. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go. But before I went to New York, I had a conversation with Ben. I was like, hey, I've got some other song ideas that I've been kind of working on in GarageBand like for a while. And I would love to like take them from demos into like making them into full songs with you. Like, could I, hire you on as my producer to do that? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. So I went down to Orlando for January of 2021 for the whole month and just worked on music with him. And it was such a fun time of life to be in this weird transitional period where I had no idea what was going to happen next. It was like, okay, I'm in Florida now. I guess I'm going to be moving to New York. I don't know what I'm going to do in New York. I don't know if I'm going to stay there. I don't know if I'm going to go back to LA. I have no idea what I'm doing. But for now, I guess we're making music. And we ended up finishing a song called Lost in the Moment. And that we put out in May of 2021. And then we had these songs that weren't finished. We hadn't finished Undertow. And after we put out Lost in a Moment, we realized the version of Undertow that we had made together. It was like, this needs a bridge. Like, this is kind of, there's something here that's missing. So then I ended up going back down to Florida, recorded more music with him the following year in 2022. And then at that point, we had enough songs where it was like, okay, we can put this out as a little 5 song EP. So that's a very long, unfocused version of this story. But
No, I dig it, man. Don't be hard on yourself. That's why I love podcasts, man. It gives people an opportunity to expound, and that's why I like doing this. And not to toot my own horn, but I can gab with the best of them. But like I said, I no, I dig it, man. I'm here for the long form. Yeah, I mean, just outside looking in, like as much as I love music, I've never been a musician, but I know many people who record, whether they do it on their own. I know a few people. Shout out my bud Ryan from Tropic Bombs, like went to school for audio engineering and records and does their stuff and just the work that goes into like one song. I don't think the average person knows like when they hear, and how would you, right? But when you hear like a 3-4 minute song, like that 3 or 4 minute song, by the time it's out and it's hitting your eardrums, that artist has probably gone through 100, if not more, different versions of it, laid it down and tried to record it so it sounds well, and then all the stuff that happens in like post production, the mixing, the mastering of all of it, like it's a lot of work, and not and just beyond the work that goes into it, just the vulnerability of it too, when you're writing something that comes from your bones and comes from your soul. But I really dug it, man, because like I said, even though I'm a metalhead, man, like I love the folky stuff too, and the Americana stuff. Obviously Tom Petty had some of that in his music too, and like, and yeah, East Riverbend I thought was cool, and if my memory serves me correctly, was that the closing track I think to the EP?
yes, Yep.
it was kind of a cool like I think is it right after the lake, I think.
Yes. Yeah, it
Uh
is.
yeah, yeah. So it's cool. Like there's like a cinematic build up with the lake, and then you go into that one, and that one was like, and I don't know. I mean, songs reach you in different ways, and I think just as somebody who's like struggled with anxiety in my life, that song to me kind of felt like a very almost like a, it was like inspirational, like lyrically, man. So I don't know where y'all were coming from on that one, but that's what I got out of it, and I thought it was a cool way to kind of cap it off because, like you said, the way that it starts, the way that EP starts, and the way that it finishes, it really does take you on like a little trip, man. And also shout out to you mentioned it within the story, but I watched it because I'm a horror nerd, and I'm like I'm looking at this dude's credits, and I was like, oh, he like did this one himself. But was the short you're talking about Homebody, was it that
Yeah.
one?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Who for people who want to check it out, it's on YouTube. I'll have the link in the podcast description. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that was cool. I don't want to give anything away, but the way that it happens, the way that it turns out, I didn't see it coming, and I was like, oh, cool, okay, this is a cool twist, man. So kudos, man. You took your experience and you did something fun, and I think that's really what it's all about, right? At the end of the day, it's just like do the stuff that makes you feel joy. Like obviously, we all got to eat, we all got to pay the bills and keep the lights on and the water running and food in the fridge, but I think for people who, any fellow creatives who might be listening to this, like that's what's cool about talking to you, man. It's like, just, having the courage to go for it, not only having the belief in yourself and having the support system around you, but just having the courage to just go, hey, I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? And so yeah, I think that's really dope. But yeah, I really loved it. And it's cool as we're recording this too, because as this comes out, it'll already be out. But as we're recording this, it is on the eve, I believe, of the movie coming out. But Toe, and I'll let you tell the story, but it's based on a true story. And you have a song in the freaking movie, dude. So I'm gonna give you your flowers and say congratulations on that because that is sick. But
Thank you.
there's a lot of cool people involved in the movie. Is it oh gosh, see, this is where I'm like having that moment where I was like 2 + 2 is 18, but I just heard him on a podcast. I know he's in it. I know Simon Rex is in it.
Yeah.
Is
Dominic Sessa, um, Simon Rex, Octavia Spencer, Demi Lovato, and then the woman of the hour, and really should be held in much higher regard. But I mean, she's getting her credit. Rose Byrne. She just won the Golden Globe for "If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You," and she was nominated for an Oscar for the same role.
yeah, so and again, I know it's a process, and I don't want you to be self-conscious of telling the story because I think it's really cool. Because again, there might be people like, hey, like maybe I have music that can either get synced or I want to try to get music in movies or shows. And this isn't your first foray into that realm, but what was that process like? And getting the song one like into the movie, um, but also the news of like, yeah, we're gonna take it and putting together like the piece of music itself. Like, can you kind of take me and the listeners through that process? Because I think it's pretty cool. And again, I think though there might be people who listen who are like, yeah, how do you do that? Like, what's that process look like?
Yeah. Well, back when Ben and I first put out Lost in a Moment, because of my experience already working in television, I was working closely with the post-production team. Anytime a song wouldn't clear, where they couldn't get the rights to something, or it was a budget issue where they're like, we already went over, we've done a lot of night shoots, so we can't afford to like buy that Duran Duran song anymore. Um, so they would try and bring in different alternates, and I was like, oh yeah, like there's a whole. I already kind of knew a little bit about that business, um, and then one of the music supervisors that worked on those shows, I had reached out to her when I put out my first song, and she was really kind. She had actually written a book on sync licensing and sent it my way. And the thing about it is, if you're like a really like if you're an autodidact and you're a go-getter, like you can read a book like that and you're like, okay, I got this. Well, I kind of just sat with that information for a while, and I was like, I need to act on this. Like another year, another 2 years is going to go by, and I'm not going to submit like reach out to do these cold call emails that I need to do. So I ended up taking this online course through a guy named Chris SD. It's called Sync Songwriter, and each year he does this class called Art of the Song Pitch, where he helps you walk through like week by week all the different things you need to do to get a song ready, from when you're writing it to producing it to um, doing all of your metadata tagging, where you put in your personal information on the MP3, so that way if a music supervisor passes it on to a buddy, they know how to actually reach you and try to make a deal happen. So kind of going through all the fine points of it, and then finally the thing that was amazing is that at the tail end of this course, there were different music supervisors that Chris already had a partnership with. He'd already worked with them previously, and I got to pitch to a music supervisor by the name of Matt Heron Smith, and he's done like all of Sean Baker's movies, including Honora, when that won Best Picture last year. And yeah, so I decided to pitch him on the long way down because I saw in his brief it said that he was working on a movie called Tow, and it was looking for car or kind of like road trip themed songs. And I was like, this might be too on the nose, but like I'll just play it for him. And the worst case is I'll get some good honest feedback. And he listened to it and he's like, I really like this. He's like, I really like the drum shuffle on it, and it's just like a nice short sweet song, and it's catchy. So didn't say that day, you got it, kid. But it was he filed it away, and that's kind of what I've learned now. And this is my advice to anybody who's trying to do sync licensing. When you send your stuff to a music supervisor, if you're doing the cold call thing, or if you actually get to pitch it to them directly, they're probably not going to reach out to you right away. They might not even give you feedback, but what I've learned from Matt, they will intentionally uh, just leave as much of those emails in their inbox. And anytime they need to look for something, they just type in a keyword. And if you wrote the right keyword in your email describing your song, then you're going to be, potentially considered for an opportunity. So I was really lucky. There were other people that I knew in the class that took it with me. They did not get a placement. So I'm just, again, it's just one of those situations where I had an incredible opportunity. I'm super grateful for it, and yeah, I have Matt Heron Smith to thank, and then I have the director of the film to thank, Stephanie Laing.
Well, congratulations, dude. That is like that's so cool, man. Like it's just to be able to have like art, that you did end up in like a major feature film. That's so cool, man. That's like that's a story. Like these are stories that you can tell when you're like, 75 years old, man. You know what I mean? Like I did the damn thing. And not in like a bragging way, but just in like, I don't know, maybe it's just like I'm getting older and I'm not old, but just like, like as I'm getting closer to 40, um, it seems like it was yesterday, like high school and, late teens, early 20s and stuff. And like the older you get, the more conscious you get, I think, at least me, of like time and how you want to spend it and who you want to spend it with. And like thankfully I don't have too many regrets, but I think the things that you don't try are the things that you look back on and go, ah man, maybe I should have given that a shot. So giving stuff a shot and taking a swing, man, like even if even if you even if you strike out, hey, you were still in the game. Like that's kind of how I look at life a lot more now as I age, man. And I just think it's really cool that you've been able to have these life experiences and to see these things kind of come to fruition, because like you said, there's the highs and lows of the journey. There's like, oh, this period ended with American Horror Story, and I thought this other show was going to go through, and okay, what's my identity now? And you know, then you do a dope EP. I know in New York, and again, I'm jumping around, but I know you found like a cool creative collective in New York where you are of musicians and other creatives, and so it's like you keep trying things, and then eventually something's gonna break through. So I'm excited to see the movie, man. I've heard really good things about it. So that's sick that you're going to be a part of it. Have you gotten a chance to see the part that is in?
I have been able to. I got to attend the premiere last year at Tribeca, and got to actually meet Rose Byrne. And when I asked if I could get a selfie, she's like, "I'll take it." She knows her angles, so she took our selfie. But I thank you for everything you just said, and I agree with you 100% about um, that. It is about like taking the swings, and I think that I think that any life choice that you make, regardless of what path you choose, there's always going to be an opportunity cost of like, oh, I could have done this other thing. There are a lot of moments on the trajectory that I've done where it's just like, what am I doing? Or like, am I really, am I going to keep toiling away at this? Like, I don't know if it's going to pay off. Like, I don't know where this is going to go. And actually, one of the things I wanted to ask you, which this is where I'm going to shift the podcast to you, Mike. First of all, congratulations on cracking 200 episodes for a podcast. That is no small feat. Uh, there are people that are just getting started, and getting to 10 or 20 episodes seems like a hard thing. 200 is incredible. And what I want to ask you is, when it comes to, again, like this idea of like taking taking risks or taking an opportunity and going with it, the idea of taking your passion for or your curiosity for talking to people, starting all the way back in college with your journalism pursuit at UT, to then Toledo Free Press, and now doing the podcast. What are some of the things that you've kind of held on to like make this whole arc happen? Because I think the at one time in my life, I was thinking like, oh, I would love to be like a Mark Maron, or I would love to be like a talk show. Like I love to, so like to pick this path. I'm really curious, like where did you kind of decide like, okay, I already have these passions with sports, I have these passions with music, but I'm gonna do like the podcast, and like I'm gonna stick with it.
Thank you so much for the question, dude. And I really appreciate that. Yeah, like the thing that really helped me a lot, um, as far as like what like the curiosity part of it you're asking about, and like just to get to this point, I think even when I was a little kid, man, like I genuinely enjoyed like learning about different people and learning about their stories and like drawing was my first passion when I was a little guy. And then I really enjoyed creative writing in school. That was like my one of my favorite things. I still remember what the paper looked like. Like it was like my two favorite things, because there was like a big blank space at the top of the page where you could like draw what your story was, and then like the solid lines with it, it almost looked like a road. Like I don't know if you know that you can visualize the paper I'm talking about from grade school, but it had like the solid lines and then like the dotted lines in between them. A lot of times like cursive. I don't think they do that no more, but unfortunately they don't do the cursive anymore. I don't know why I said that by like Joe Pesci just now. I don't shine shoes no more. Uh, but anyway, so I think like early on when I was a little guy, like I always kind of had that creative kind of itch to scratch. And then and sort of sort of the light and the dark though, like I had anxiety when I was younger too, and I didn't know what it was, you know? And so there were things that I avoided, that would trigger like panic attacks and stuff like that. But I had to like write, and I had to talk with people and learn about them. And so, um, senior year of high school, I wrote for the Centric. Shout out Mallory. She was the editor, and we went to Christ the King together. This is getting a little inside baseball at Toledo, but
Sure,
we
all
went to
good.
junior high. Yeah,
Yeah.
we went to junior high together. Um, and she was looking for somebody to do sports, and she knew how much I like love basketball and sports and stuff. So she's like, "Hey, Mike, you know, can you do this?" And so like anything, the first, you get those flutters, and I'm like, I don't know if I can, like always fighting that imposter syndrome. But I did that, had no idea how to write in like journalism, journalistic style, but that was kind of like an intro. And then when I got to college, like that was the path, like the sports writing. And as cool as it was going to the games and doing like the game stories, the gamers as we call them, like The feature stories are what I really love the most, man. Because it was like, all right, this dude, scores 25 points a game, or this athlete, like she scores, all these goals for the soccer team or whatever. But like, who are they and where are they're from, And I think my first feature story was Nadia Zubareva, I think, if I remember correctly. She was I want to say she was a women's tennis player at Toledo, and she was from, I think, Egypt originally. And I'm just kind of like, oh, cool. Like, what's that? What's that story, man? Like being from a different country. Like I'm right up the road, and I'm just commuting to school every day. Like this person's from a different country. And then we had Nama Shafir, who was a really accomplished basketball player at the University of Toledo. I believe she's in the Hall of Fame now, and she came from, I think it was Hoshea, Israel. It's a village, Orthodox Jewish faith, and if they had games on Saturdays, out of respect for her faith, she had to wear a T-shirt under her jersey, couldn't travel in the car, eat kosher meals. They would have to stay in hotels where they were within walking distance to the arena. And I just thought that was cool, those different life experiences. But what really kind of was the kicker, um, was I had an opportunity to get into broadcasting when I was done with school, through some guys that worked at Toledo Hospital. And sadly, both my mentors in broadcasting passed away last year, right around this time, about a month apart, um, uh,
Jeez.
with some like cancer health battles and stuff. Shout out Mike Jameson and Mick Gonzalez, man. They called me Bomber, and I was terrified to get on in front of a camera. I was terrified. I just thought like the worst thing, like in my head, I'm like, I'm gonna have a panic attack. I'm gonna vomit. It's gonna be all over YouTube, and my career in broadcasting is gonna be over. And but the short story long that I'm doing right now is when I did that, man, that like opened up like a whole new door for me of like, oh, this is something that I enjoy. And I was kind of underprepared for sure when I was stringing some stories before to like Toledo Free Press. I was doing some high school games, and got an opportunity through the Fremont News Gazette, I think it was. Shout out Vince Guerreri. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, but Vince was cool. He gave me an opportunity to do that. And you're doing like the stat book, you're doing the gamer, and you don't have the luxury like in college of like they're giving you the stats like every
Yes.
quarter.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And so I'd done a couple of those stories, and I had initially kind of balked at the broadcasting thing because I was terrified. I went from A to worst case scenario, and which I still have to remind myself not to do. And but my first game, I had a moment where I um just out of sheer luck, really, like I called the play before it happened, uh,
Nice. Little Tony
and
Romo action there.
yeah, it was, and I'll never forget it, man. It was at Otsego High School again, a little inside baseball, but to paint the picture for people, like if they like Friday Night Lights or stuff, like it was like, Otsego's like outside of the Toledo city limits. It's a smaller kind of like rural town, and we were doing this game. It was Otsego, Anthony Wayne. I was really nervous, but I got through the stand up in the beginning, which the stand up for people don't know is like when you're in front of the camera before the game. It's like the little pregame spiel. Did that. And I'm like, okay, I feel a little bit better. Then we got into the booth, and like right before halftime, Otsego, the home team, they had the ball, and they had twin brothers on the team, and one of them was like a really good running back, kind of like a guy who, was like a scat back, like you could throw it to him out of the backfield. And I remember Mick was like, Bomber, what would you do in this play? If you were Otsego, I'm like, well, Mick, they're down, they got a chance to get some points on the board before halftime. They're around midfield. I would just get it to Fremantle in space, and see what he can do. And the next play, they threw it to that kid in the flat, dude, and he took it to the house. And I could hear Mick's voice like going,
Wow.
he was doing the call, like he was excited. And in that moment, it kind of like lifted me, like it was just like a lot of the nerves kind of started
Yeah.
to kind of go away. So anyway, that moment, and those guys and everybody at Toledo Sports Network, Steve Taylor, all the people I worked with there over the years, like doing broadcasting gave me the confidence to do this. And the free press kind of bled into this because sometimes I'll get to talk to people for a while, and there was only so much I could fit in 600, 700 word stories. And
Hmm.
as long as the PR people were cool with it, I wanted to give people like the full conversation. So the early days of this podcast were Bauman's Breakdown way back in 2012, and we would do it out of Mike's home studio, Mike Jameson's home studio in Rossford from Toledo
Wow.
Sports. He had a home studio. So I think getting to 200 episodes is just me, like, I just have a need to do this, and I really enjoy getting to know people and help share their stories. And if it helps like inspire somebody out there to maybe kind of push through some of the imposter syndrome. I don't know, maybe in a lot of ways it's like me trying to like we always got like that inner child, in us,
Yeah.
and another guy that was on the show who has the same name as a famous film director. Shout out Wes Anderson. He's not the for Wes Anderson. He goes by Songs by Wes, but Wes is another guy like us from Northwest Ohio who's done a lot of and is still doing a lot of really cool things musically and has done a lot of really cool collaborations. Gotten to work with 311, who's his favorite band, Peanut
Wow.
from 311, and one of the things he said in a conversation with me one time was like, trying to do things that are going to make eight-year-old you happy and 80-year-old you happy.
Mhm.
And so I think doing these conversations and just like getting to 200 episodes is just it's a credit to my support system who believes in me and also just I think wanting to connect with people and wanting to leave something positive behind, whenever my time's up and I hope that, putting people on to new music and letting them know that, if they have like a mental health struggle or whatever kind of darkness they're working through, grief, death, loss, heartbreak, like there's everybody that you look up to in entertainment has gone through or is going through something too, and so like whatever dream you have, if it's in it, and it is, I guess like if it's a creative one, maybe I don't want to say like especially if it's a creative one, because some people want to be like some people want to be a you know a good a family man,
Yeah.
and have a 9 to 5, and that's an awesome path too. But like whatever dream that you have, like you're worthy of it. So anyway, I feel
Yeah.
like I ranted. I don't even know if I answered your
No, no,
question.
no,
Yeah.
no. I agree. And I think also I got to take it back to the moment with the Otsego call. Like that's so exciting and affirming. And it feels like a moment in the movie. It's like the the there's like a side profile of like your partner making the call, but the camera's just moving over to your face, just being like, I got this. Like that's so cool. Um, but yeah, I think being able to share uh even it's like I feel in the podcasting space it can be hard you know there's some podcasts that I listen to, and sometimes I go long bouts between listening, but I one of the things that like actually brings me a lot of clarity if I'm in a situation when I am feeling down, I often go to podcasts. Like if it's like, oh man, I'm behind on my chores, like, and I'm just really dreading whatever it is that I'm having to get through. I'll throw on a podcast. So like to have the stories that you're sharing or the stories that you're amplifying and the people, and then it's like, oh yeah, no, they're talking through the things that they're working through right now, or like, oh, they had like this incredible success. Like I love a good rags to riches story, or riches to rags to riches again, or you know not necessarily the riches, but like richer life. So I really appreciate what you're doing, and it's I was able to listen to a few of your episodes before I hopped on here with you. So it's really cool what you're doing, and yeah, thank you for making me a part of it.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew, for the kind words, man. I really appreciate it. And that's what's rewarding about this doing this too is like I'm reminded of like, sometimes like in my life, I know I've gotten caught up in like, okay, like, but when's this thing gonna happen? And when like like focused on the next thing, you know what I mean? Um, and I've realized through talking with people like yourself and so many other like creatives and friends of mine and colleagues and stuff, like really the beauty really is in the journey, you know. And it's good to have goals and obviously hold yourself accountable to whatever work you're doing, or and not even work, but just like how you carry yourself on a day-to-day basis. Like how I treat people is the thing that I care about the most. It's not about being liked, but it's just about like leaving good behind, and there's moments in my life where I wish I would have done better at that with people I've come across. Thankfully I don't have a lot of those, but like that's like paramount to me. But like the journey is the meat and potatoes really of it, and I think you hear these stories, and I'm sure you came across that in your time in Hollywood and probably New York too, where sometimes people get the thing, and then they get there, they climb the mountain, and they get up there and they're like, okay, all right, when's the next thing?
Yep.
And so much of it too, in movies and music and stuff, it's like, oh man, you won the Grammy. What's the next album going to be? You're like, oh, you won the Oscar. What's the next movie? Oh, Andrew, you put out the EP. When's the next one coming, dude? And you're like, man, I put so much work into this. Can I just enjoy the? And so that's kind of what's cool about doing this show too, is I've gotten a chance to talk to artists who have sold millions of records, and I've also gotten to talk to artists who I was their first interview, and I treat them both the same, man, because both journeys are equally as important, and the perspectives are going to be different, and the point in the journey is going to be different. But really, it's the journey, and I think that's why sometimes you hear those stories from musicians or people in movies, where they're like, man, what was like the happiest or the most fulfilled you felt? And I feel like a lot of the conversations I hear are like, man, when we were in a stinky van and we were
Yeah.
like going up and down the coast, and but we were building the fan base, and each show it just grew and grew and grew, and those moments are often more enjoyable, it seems like, when they were young and they had like nothing to lose, compared to like maybe when they had all the plaques on the wall, and now there's a higher level of expectations, or the business side of things kind of can affect the creativity. So anyway, man, no, I really appreciate the kind words, dude. Yeah, I'm usually not on the other end of the questions, and even though I like to gab, I really don't love to talk. Like I don't want to. I like to make the conversation about the
Yeah.
guest, you know what I mean? Because
I get
sometimes
it.
I listen to shows, and I try really hard not to like talk over people. Like people close to me, I feel like I interject too much. Like one of my best friends, I always tell him, like, dude, I'm working on it, man. I don't want to like cut you off. But so I try really hard in the podcast to like let it breathe. And let people like work through their answer. And you're not the first one to say to me, like, oh man, like maybe I should have worded that differently, or the story. But I'm like, no, like that's like, even when I would write, dude, like I would try not to clean up quotes too much from people. I
Mm.
would try to I would really try to write it so that like their voice would come out. And I don't know that in journalism people always like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um but I would try to put it on the paper the way they said it, because it's
Yeah.
like that's like your voice. But anyway, yeah, the journey is really like the part of it, you know what I mean? Like and enjoying the moments along the way. So yeah, it's cool to get to that milestone, and I appreciate you um the kind words on the show, man, because it really is just about positive connection,
Hmm.
and letting people know that they're not alone out there. Like that's important to me. I'm not a mental health professional, but that's important to me, man. There'd be a lot of people who would still be here if they felt like they could express themselves and not be judged. So if whoever listens to my show, hopefully they're entertained by this goofball, but I hope like stories like yours inspire them,
Yeah.
to know, you can come from Toledo, Ohio, Northwest Ohio. You can come from, you can be in New York, you can be in LA, you can be wherever, and chase your dreams, whatever they are. Whether you want to be a doctor,
Hmm.
whether you want to be a great dad, a great mom, a therapist, a musician, like creative, non-creative, like, just being a good person is what it's really all about, believing in yourself. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and even I think it's also um pe people don't always have the opportunity to tell their story. And if you're, it's like you were saying, some people come on the show, it's the first time they've ever been on a podcast, or they're just getting started, and for you to, you know, give them an opportunity, like just be like, oh wait, like I'm actually getting a chance to kind of think about things that maybe I, you know, having somebody, an outside perspective actually kind of talk to me about my work, or talk to me about what they kind of see in my work. That's really valuable. And, you know, whether an audience picks up on that, or whether it's just the relationship between you and the person they're interviewing, it still brings so much value.
Well, thanks, dude. And like I feel like stories like yours, like everybody, people just need to know that they're worthy. Like if you're alive and you're breathing, like one, you're already a miracle. But I think we live in this day and age, and sometimes I get caught up in that too. Like, oh, how many downloads were there on that episode, or how many views did this reel get from the, you
Yeah,
know, and we there are metrics to measure things. Like I'm sure as a musician too. Like, oh, how many people listen to this? Oh, cool, somebody from Asia listened to this. Oh, that's sweet. My song reached Asia. That's cool. Like, the 10-year-old in me would be jazzed about that. But like, so yeah, there's metrics to like measure things, but I think I don't know, man. Like, and maybe that's like my own kind of thing too, like those feelings of worthiness and imposter syndrome. But it's like, dude, if you're alive and you're breathing, and you try to walk through life with kindness in your heart, like you're worthy of whatever you want to do, man. And everybody's journey is important. Whether you're a local band and you work a 9 to 5 and you've got your local music scene and you've got your fan base, like that's still sick. That's still cool that you've got, you know, 300 people or 100 people or even 10 people that love what you do, that you reached. If you reach
absolutely.
one person, it's cool. So I think that's really part of it is like just I want people to know that they're worthy of whatever they want to go after, man. And it's cool that and hearing stories like yours is inspiring me too. Like that's a big part of like going back to you're asking like getting to 200 and like uh the inspiration that I get from people on this show, like that motivates me to keep doing this too, man. So, guys like you who are going after what you love, and taking chances creatively and just doing the things that you love, like that inspires me. So that's a big part of I think how I got to 200 episodes too, man. There's so many cool stories out there, and if I can be like a conduit to like
Yeah.
somebody's ears, it's cool, man.
Yeah, man. And I mean, someday you can write a book.
Yeah, that would be, man. Yeah, that would be something. It would be an undertaking. But yeah, if I could, I'd probably have to read, like how could I write? Like just because like the style that I've written in, like, you know, um, for journalism, like it's even been a minute since I've done that. But yeah, that would be cool, man. I'm gonna keep doing it as long as people want to keep coming on, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
But well, dude, I've kept you like a half hour later than I said I was, and
Oh,
you're like an
I don't
hour
mind. This has been great.
behind me. But thank you so much for your time. Again, like everybody, go watch Toe, man. It's out now, as it's gonna be hitting y'all's eardrums in April. But Andrew, thank you so much. This is kind of I structurally we're talking about stories and everything. I'm always like I was just saying this yesterday at another conversation I had. I'm like I maybe I shouldn't leave a heavier question for the end, but I usually kind of like to cap it on that. But with the theme of the show being perseverance and moving forward, and you kind of talked about the trials and tribulations even in your journey, man. And kind of like the identity thing. And like okay, like I thought I was gonna have this gig and now I don't. What do I do? Um, as somebody who's gone after what you love creatively, and taken these chances in your life, man, like is there any advice that you would give somebody listening if they're kind of you know either finding themselves within that or just on the cusp of like, oh man, like like can I go after it, like anything that's kind of helped you in this process, or consistent things that have kind of helped you get through those difficult times?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I have to give another shout out to my dad. There were a lot of late night phone calls where I was on the verge of quitting. And he was the person that was like, I mean, you can, like, you're allowed to do that, but I don't know that you necessarily want to do that. This is something that you're working toward. And it wasn't with any sort of like there was no agenda attached to it. It was just pure like, you know, I'm here to support you. And so he talked me off ledges, and uh and then I have also other friends that have, played a similar role of like, you know, I think I think I mean the whole music thing from a I mean, sorry, I gotta restart here for a second. The I would not have any of the art that I have been able to help create if not for my co-creators. Ben, when you were talking earlier about like all the work that goes into a song, oh my, like since I had never really done any audio, music production stuff before, that was all Ben, and he had a lot of patience for me of being an inexperienced person. And so I think it's kind of like the stuff that we're talking about. It's like it's the people around you that really are going to be the ones that kind of help you through it. And if you can be that person for somebody else, like um think about the whole idea of like you will have your bad days, and hopefully on those bad days you will have at least one friend or family member that's having a good day that can actually give you some time. So I mean, for starters, it's just like, and I know that there's some people that don't actually you know they might not have the best relationship with their family, or they might be in an argument with a friend, or things have gotten difficult in that sense. And in that type situation, if we're talking like one on one, like you against your own mind, I mean, the things that have helped me the most always are like, actually, I got some really good advice from a therapist back during COVID, because I was doing remote work, and it was just wrecking my mental health of like not having any separation between what is home, what is work. Because I would hop off Zoom, and then I would take a break, but then it was like, okay, now I have to start doing I have to start cleaning up notes. I have to start doing all these other emails and things that I have to do. And uh, I was getting so stressed out about like, how am I going to get all this stuff done in time? What am I like? What does my life even look like when I'm, doing all this kind of stuff? And my therapist was just like, look, I know you're looking at this as like as an end of world situation of like, oh, you have this task and you technically need to get it done. But what would happen actually if you didn't send that email? Or what has happened if you didn't get that thing done? And I'm like, well, nobody's actually called me out on it. Nobody's said anything. She's like, you just gotta, there are certain moments where you kind of build up this pressure of like, oh, it's kind of like what you're saying. It's like you have that moment where you win the Grammy or whatever, and you're like, what do I do next? It's like you actually, you're allowed to just be a human. Like you don't have to you don't have to be the overachiever at work. You don't have to be the person that's always on. Like you're allowed to take a day where it's like, you know what? I really wanted to make this thing happen, but it's better for me to walk away being a whole person than to like continually compress and uh, put myself under this unnecessary pressure. So like I love to take bike rides. I love to listen to podcasts like this where you're hearing people talk about, overcoming obstacles, or, just sharing a slice of life that you have no context for that. And so now you're kind of like you've a more holistic view of the world. Um, and then, yeah, I think like at the end of the day, coming back to your art and being like, what am I, or even if it's not art, but it's like, what am I curious about? It's like if I'm finding my curiosity isn't actually leading me toward that goal that I'm putting myself so much pressure on, like it's okay to put that on the back burner and be like, you know what? I really want to go to a baseball game. Like I want to have a day at the park. Like you're allowed to do it. It's your life. Like you don't have to live by all these rules that society may say you have to do in order to be like the best musician, or to be the best reporter or to be the best I mean, I guess when you start getting into family, there are certain obligations you have to meet as far as, you know, your child care and whatnot. But there are outlets and there are ways to yeah, you just got to take a little time for yourself.
Well, Andrew, I really appreciate you taking the time, man. Genuinely, I feel like I could talk to you for like 5 hours, and you're welcome back anytime. We'll have to
Thank
we'll
you.
have to do a part two, man. But yeah, you got a really inspiring journey, dude. And it's just it's always cool to see somebody from where we're from, going after what they love. And I think especially like the creative direction too, just because like having that connective tissue of just creativity and music and art in any kind of form, like I've always been drawn to that just on my own. So when I meet other people like that, it's kind of like the Spider-Man meme. I'm like, oh, you too? Like, cool. Let's nerd out about, Tom
Yeah.
Petty, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, kudos to you for um, and again, like I want to stress, like, not just the things that you've been able to do, because obviously it's dope to be able to do those things. But I just think like even having the courage to go after it. And that's really, I think, something I hope people take away from this episode. Like that's so much part of it, man. Just having the belief in yourself to just go for it, and I think so many of us, myself included, failure kind of becomes like that obstacle and that wall sometimes. But it's like, sometimes I heard that quote too. Sometimes your greatest teacher is your last mistake, and sometimes your failures too can teach you a lot. And it's like, to me, there's no failure in effort or in trying. And I know in sports, like I know, I think did you run cross country? I
I
think,
did.
and
I did.
yeah, like, so I
How'd you
know in
figure that
sports.
out?
So oh, I did my homework, man. Um, I know in sports that's always not like, oh, it's win, and it's like, yeah, the object is to win the game, but at the same time, it's like, to even be in the game, you gotta like try out for the team. You gotta show up, and I think if you show up for yourself, like you're already kind of like in the game. And so I think it's cool that you've not only gotten to do what you've gotten to do, but you have the courage to put yourself in those positions, to go to LA, and like you said, yeah, there's people that helped, get you plugged in, but you still had to have the courage to do it. And, you could have easily said, no, I'm going to do this other thing, so I think that's what's really cool about your journey. So I'm excited for you, man. I want everybody to go check out the Paulsen-Shepler EP Undertow. Again, I know, trying to pick your favorite songs is probably like asking somebody who their favorite kid is. So every time I tell artists what my favorite are, I'm always kind of like, I want them to know I appreciated the whole thing. But I really enjoyed East River Bend. The lake is, again, cinematic. The title track is dope. But and everybody go watch Toe too, man. And you'll hear Andrew's music in the movie. So I'll put up the links in the podcast description. But let them know where they can find you, dude.
You can find me. I'm liking websites and email lists these days. So if you want to check me out, go to ajpaulsen.com. I am on Instagram, but I'm trying to move it to less of the meta data hoarding, corporate world. We'll see. We'll see. I have no idea where I'm going next, but you can go to my website for starters. So.